How's it going, everyone? And welcome to the #1 Raiders show in the world. This is the Raiders Daily Podcast. My name is Stephen Michaels. Let's get right into it. The Raiders did go into New Jersey, or New York, wherever you want to call it. It's really New Jersey. And defeated the winless New York Jets 31-28. Yes, the score should have never been that close. Yes, the Raiders left a ton of points off the scoreboard. Yes, it wasn't, a perfect game by any means. The Raiders win by a last-second touchdown to Henry Ruggs. It was a great ending. Don't get me wrong. It would have been a great ending if it was against the Kansas City Chiefs or even a team we're going to talk about next. But when you have to win in the final seconds against a 0-11 team, it worries me a little bit. I mean, it seems like the Raiders really play to whoever they're playing's level. You know what I'm saying? If they play a very bad team, the Raiders don't play that good. If they play a team like the Chiefs, they step up their game. That's just how the Raiders are. So we shall see. Now, their defense, in my opinion, against the Jets, it wasn't that terrible. They do have trouble stopping the run. That's something I've been saying since the season started. Even though the stats may tell you, I don't know what the Raiders are ranked right now, but even though the stats may tell you they're not as bad against the run, the Raiders really are. It's just teams decide to throw the ball a lot more than they do run the ball because it's so easy to throw the ball off the Raiders. The middle of the field's always wide open. So why wouldn't you throw the ball? Why wouldn't you take that chance of just having a guy wide open in the middle of the field? Any team's going to take that. Any team. So we shall see. Now the Raiders, here it is right here. The Raiders, their rush defense, they are ranked 20th in the NFL. They were ranked a lot better than that, but in the last couple of weeks, teams have noticed that it is easy to run off the Raiders. That's something they are going to have to fix this week. Now, just to wrap up this Jets game, remember what I always say. A win is a win. Yes, it wasn't perfect. Everyone knows that. Derek Carr wasn't perfect in this game by any means. I mean, I watched the film. There were wide open guys all over the field. For some reason, they were not getting the ball. He overthrew a lot of people. I mean, he overthrew Nelson Alligator for a game-winning touchdown. I mean, the guy overthrew a lot of people, underthrew, you name it, he did it. He wasn't perfect, but he did enough, and he did, he threw the game-winning touchdown. And credit to the Raiders defense, by the way, for even giving Derek Carr that opportunity, because that guy was on the bench thinking it was over, but the Raiders defense held the Chiefs to a quick 3-and-out, a very quick 3-and-out. And by the way, and they pushed the running back out of bounds, but the refs left the clock keep ticking, which was BS in my opinion. But still, the Raiders didn't need much time. What makes you wonder is, they scored so quick there. 30 seconds? They probably could have done that all game long. Really, I'm serious. But the Raiders did go into New York without Josh Jacobs, who was injured with an ankle injury. It looks like, at least right now, that they will not have him against the Colts. That could be a big blow. But I've been advocating that Devontae Booker should get more carries. Now, against the Jets, I believe he only got 16 carries. He should have got more than that. You have Booker, you have Jalen Richard, and now you have Theo Riddick. I don't know if they're going to signing Spencer Ware. He did come in for a tryout. He was there just last week, by the way, for a tryout. So usually when a guy has a tryout and comes back again a week later for a tryout, usually it means they sign him, but it's Spencer Ware, so I don't know what he has left in the gas tank, to be honest with you. But it all depends what's going on with Josh Jacobs' ankle. When are they going to get him back? They did sign Daryl Worley back. Remember him? Daryl Worley. Now, he will not play this week, but he will play against the Chargers. Remember, that game is on a Thursday night. So we'll see how Daryl Worley does. This is a guy the Raiders claimed off the Bills practice squad. Think about that. They claimed him off the Bills practice squad. And if you think back, I don't know if you guys remember, but the Raiders actually offered Daryl Worley a small contract, and it was a few $1,000,000, and he turned it down. He thought he was going to get paid big time somewhere else. Remember, the guy's still young, and he didn't take the deal. He ends up getting cut. Then he ends up on the Buffalo Bills. I think he played for the Cowboys, I believe. He got cut. Then he went to the Buffalo Bills, and he was on their practice squad. The Raiders claim him. Now, the reason why they bring in Worley is because he knows the defense. So it's not going to be much of a transition there. He knows what he's doing. They can plug him in anywhere. They can put him as a safety. They can put him as a cornerback. Wherever. He knows both positions there. So it is a good pickup for the Raiders. Hopefully the guy can help anyone right now can help that Raiders defense. Just to let you know, especially that secondary. So, I'm all for Vic Beasley getting more reps. I believe he will play, by the way, against the Colts, and they're going to need him. They're going to need to get a pass rush against crying Phillip Rivers. They have to. They need to make this guy uncomfortable. Remember, Phillip Rivers, he makes some stupid decisions when he plays the Raiders. I know he's with the Colts now. I know the Colts have a good record, and let's make no mistake about it, guys. This game against the Colts on Sunday, it's a playoff game. It is a playoff game. There is no other way around it. If the Raiders don't win this game, their chances of making the playoffs get very, very slim. They would need so much help, that it's almost unlikely they make the playoffs. And there's still a chance. It's just going to be, very difficult. The Raiders control their own destiny. If they can take care of the Indianapolis Colts, they are going to be in good position. They got the Chargers after that. Now, let's just say, it's a short week, and the Chargers defeat them. The Raiders would be able to overcome that if they beat the Miami Dolphins after that and then beat the Denver Broncos. They would still make the playoffs. They would need a little bit of help. They would need the Ravens to drop a game, a couple things, but nothing major. But obviously the best course of action here would be the Raiders running the table, winning these last, 4 games here. Can the Raiders do that? I don't know. They have not won 4 in a row all season long. So it's hard just to say, oh yeah, they can do it when they haven't done it all season. So it's really, really tough to say that the Raiders could do something like that. That they could win, the next 4 games. All in a row. Now remember, if they do that, they make the playoffs, which means they would have to win, Another game. We're talking about 6, 7 games here if they wanted to go to the Super Bowl. But even to get in the playoffs, if they can win 4 in a row, they will be in the playoffs, no matter what. I promise you that. If the Raiders can take care of business and beat the Colts, then beat the Chargers, and then that other big playoff game against Miami, and then against the end of their season in Denver, in the cold, against the Broncos, kind of scares me there, because, things could add up where that game ends up being so huge for the Raiders. They win, they're in the playoffs. They lose, they're out of the playoffs. Broncos have nothing to play for other than spoiling the Raiders' hopes of playing in the playoffs. Hopefully that doesn't come down to that. There's scenarios that, that have that in play, but I don't think that's going to be the case. This game right here, this coming week against the Indianapolis Colts is a playoff game. This is the biggest game. This game and the Miami Dolphins game. Those are the games the Raiders must win. Now, they have to win all their games, but as far as teams in the mix, in the wild card mix, the Colts are ahead of the Raiders right now. And the Raiders can really flip the switch with a victory. Now, it's not going to be an easy task. Like I said, the Colts, they have a good record. They are 8-4. They're coming off a win against the Houston Texans. Phillip Rivers threw for 285 yards. Listen, this is a team that has Jonathan Taylor. Last week against the Texans, 19 carries, 91 yards. They have a whole bunch of guys who can run the football. They got a lot of good wide receivers, including T.Y. Hilton, who the Raiders really, that could be a matchup nightmare for them. It really could be. I mean, last week he had 8 catches for 110 yards and a touchdown. Then you got Michael Pittman Jr., they got Jonathan Taylor. They got a lot of guys there. The Raiders that secondary needs to step it up. And I don't think we are going to get Arnett in this game for the Raiders. Unfortunately, it looks like this guy got banged up again. Another concussion, although I think it has more to do with his neck. But he probably does have another concussion. I cannot tell you one way or the other right now, but it just looked like, the guy was out of it. But I do know he does have a neck injury. So either way, it does not seem like he's going to play. The good news is there is a chance the Raiders could, as I do this podcast, get Trent Brown back for the Indianapolis Colts. So that's good news. Even though they don't have Josh Jacobs, I still think with Trent Brown, Devontae Booker could run that way. Remember, Trent Brown's a monster. The guy just needs to sit there, really. You can run around him, run in between him. I think Devontae Booker could handle this. I really do. I think this guy's been having an excellent year. I really do. And I think with the 3-back lineup, you rotate all 3 of those guys and see which guy is, doing it. Which guy's catching on fire here, you roll with that guy. That's how the Raiders got to play this if they have no Josh Jacobs. And like I said, it seems like they're not going to have Josh Jacobs in this game. But does not mean the Raiders cannot win this. Remember, the Raiders have so many weapons on offense. Let's not forget here. Darren Waller showed last week. He's still the Darren Waller. I mean, Derek Carr wanted weapons to throw to. He has them. The alligator. This guy's constantly open. Hunter Renfrow. I mean, third and Renfrow. This guy's always been clutch. You got him. You got Henry Ruggs. You got Bryan Edwards, who I think the Raiders are kind of easing back on, hoping, this game against the Colts, I think you'll probably see more than a lot of Bryan Edwards. Because this is when you want to start showing those guys a lot more. They've been easing him back in. Remember, he had an injury. But now's the time you got to throw him the football. Because teams aren't really looking at him right now. Teams aren't concerned about him. They're more concerned about Henry Ruggs beating them over the top or Josh Jacobs running the ball. Last week, the Jets, as you know, on the final play when the Raiders, Derek Carr threw a touchdown pass to Henry Ruggs, the Jets threw out a blitz, an all-out blitz, and left their cornerback one-on-one with Henry Ruggs. You are not going to win that battle. Now, the Colts, obviously, a lot better team. A lot better defense. This is going to be, like I said, a tough task. When we look at it, the total offense, the Colts are ranked 13th in the NFL. The Raiders, they're 15th. Their rush offense for the Colts, they're 21st. The Raiders are 10th, but that's with Josh Jacobs, of course. Their passing offense, once again, the Colts have them beat. They're 11th. The Raiders are ranked 17th. Third down offense, though. This is something you might want to look at as we go into this game. The Raiders are ranked 3rd on third down offense, where the Colts are ranked 29th. So just something to look at right there. You know what I mean? Stats don't mean a lot. They really don't when you put things into context. But their third down offense really hasn't been that great this season. So that's something to keep your eyes out for. But the biggest thing, of course, is the defense. We know the Raiders' defense is not very good. Their total defense ranked are 22nd in the NFL. Meanwhile, the Colts, they have a top 5 defense. They are ranked 5th. Their rush defense is 7th. Their pass defense is ranked 7th. Points per game, they're ranked 10th. Third down defense, they're ranked 15th. So, this is a really good defense the Raiders are going to go after, have to play against. And last time they played against a good defense was the Bucs, and they got demolished. So what do you do in this game? Well, first of all, you got to see if you can run the football. That's going to be the biggest key. If the Raiders can run the football in this game, they will have success because that will open up the passing game and they'll be able to control the tempo of the game. But more importantly than anything, the Raiders need to control the time of possession. Don't leave your defense out on the field the entire game, or you will get killed. That's just the way it is. You will get destroyed if you do that. So the Raiders really need to control the clock. That means they need to get the ball, they need to move the chains, they need to keep Derek Carr on the field and not on the bench. The offensive line has to step up. As you know, Derek Carr basically averages a fumble per game. So the offensive line with Trent Brown, hopefully, if he plays, they got to protect Derek Carr. These guys are going to be coming after him. Guys like Justin Houston. I believe he's just coming off a game where he had 4 sacks or something like that. This team, there's a lot of guys that can get after the quarterback. Buckner's another one. There's a lot of these guys. So the Raiders need to make sure, their offensive line is holding up. More importantly, I'm not so worried about the sacks, to be honest with you. I'm more worried about the Raiders running the football. They need to run the football like perfect in this game. They really do. Now, the Colts coming into this game, like I said, with their sacks, they have a lot of guys. They have a lot of guys who can get after the quarterback, who can do what they do, which is disrupting the passer, make them make mistakes, and the other team, and the Colts jump all over that. Hopefully, the Raiders can really just go out there and be a bully. Run the ball down their throats. Set up the play action. Get Henry Ruggs more involved. I want to see some jet sweeps. I really, really do. The Colts do it with T.Y. Hilton. They have him do a whole bunch of things. Why not do that with Henry Ruggs? Get him more involved. Way more involved. Devontae Booker, get him involved in the screen pass game. As far as on defense for the Raiders, like I said, the Raiders have to stop the run, for one. They have to cover well. And most important, they have to tackle. They have to wrap up and tackle these guys. And they have to watch out. The Colts do a lot of outside stuff. A lot of screen passes, a lot of runs to the outside, just a wide receiver screens. This is a team that likes to throw to the outside a lot. So they'll take they'll do slant passes and things like that. But this is a team that like to do that. And Phillip Rivers, as you know, can be reckless with the football sometimes. So this is why the Raiders need to get some kind of pass rush. This is why, I'm all in favor of throwing Vic Beasley out there and seeing what he can do. Maybe he'll generate some kind of pass rush. They pretty much had Carl Nassib as a healthy scratch last week because the guy, I think the Raiders are kind of seeing they paid this guy for no reason, hasn't done nothing. Hasn't done anything to help the pass rush. So they signed Vic Beasley. They signed this Tack McKinley guy who I don't think can play this week, maybe next week. But they need to get after the quarterback. So Paul Guenther needs to dial up some better blitzes, some stunt blitzes. Get Kwiatkowski blitzing. Jonathan Abram is still a question mark in this game. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? Hopefully he does play, even though he's been terrible in coverage. You can still blitz him. And I think you need to do that off Phillip Rivers. You need to throw the blitz on him. You don't want to do what the Jets did, final play of the game, throw an all-out blitz. But throughout the game, you need to get after Phillip Rivers. You need to get in his head. Now, hopefully, Phillip Rivers, as you know, his history against the Raiders, even when he has killed the Raiders as a member of the Chargers, he has always made some bonehead mistakes in almost every game. So maybe mentally, every time he sees that Raiders helmet, he just does something stupid. That is going to be the hope here. Because Phillip Rivers, I think the Raiders, he's like a robot. This guy, he's old. The Raiders defense should be able to get after this guy. And when you look at the Colts, by the way, if we just take a look at the Colts, right? Like I said, they're 8-4, they're first in their division. But what have the Indianapolis Colts really done? What have they done? What teams have they beaten? Well, they opened up the season and they lost against Jacksonville. Then they did have an impressive win against the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, most of these teams, by the way, don't have winning records. Then, of course, they beat the Jets. Then they beat the Chicago Bears. Then they lost against the Cleveland Browns. They won against the Bengals. They won against Detroit. They lost against Baltimore. They won against Tennessee in November. I believe it was week 10. Then they won against, I think, their biggest game. They won against Green Bay week 11. And then they follow that up and get smashed by Tennessee 45-26 in week 12. And then, of course, last week, week 13, they beat the Houston Texans 26-20. But if you just look at these aren't really, really great teams the Colts have beat. Their schedule isn't that tough. So, yes, they have a good record. Yes, they're first place in their division. Yes, they're 8-4, but look at the teams they've played. They haven't been playing teams like the Raiders. I don't see no Tampa Bay Bucks on their record, schedule, or the Kansas City Chiefs, not once, but twice. The Raiders, they had a hard schedule this season, but they overcame that. Now, you're looking at 4 games. 4 games that dictate the outcome of your season. And the Colts are standing in your way. Like I said, this is a playoff game. There is no other way to twist it. The Colts are in the Raiders' way. If the Colts beat the Raiders, they'll probably remain in their way, and the Raiders won't be able to get in the playoffs. Barring the Miami Dolphins have some breakdown. But here's the thing. Then you got to wonder, well, what about the Patriots? Because the Patriots, they're only, a couple of games back. And they have a tiebreaker over the Raiders. Now, last week, like I said, even though the Raiders won, a lot of things happened that hurt the Raiders, including the Cleveland Browns winning. Now the Cleveland Browns, it looks like they're going to be smooth sailing. Now it's almost like you want to root for Cleveland Browns, by the way, to just keep winning. Because the Ravens are right there, another team right next to the Raiders. So, this is something where the Raiders, they're in a mix now with all of these teams. They need the Ravens to lose some football games here. There's no doubt about that. They need the Ravens to lose. So we will see if the Browns can defeat the Ravens. If the Browns can beat the Ravens, the Rams defeat the Patriots, the Chiefs beat the Dolphins, and the Raiders take care of business and beat the Colts, the Raiders are going to be in pretty damn good shape. If all of that happens, what I just mentioned, Rams beating the Patriots, Chiefs beating the Dolphins, Cleveland beating the Ravens, and the Raiders beating the Colts, things are going to be looking good for the Raiders. It really will be. If you want to throw in a bonus there, you could have, throw in that, hey, Jacksonville beats Tennessee. Then Jacksonville falls to 8-5. I doubt that's going to happen. But those main games are the ones you really need to look at. Like I said, I don't like New England hanging around. I really don't. Would I love them to get into the playoffs and play the Raiders, and the Raiders be able to have a revenge game against them and beat the Patriots? Yes, because if you guys remember, I was really upset about the Raiders losing against New England because I hate the Patriots, and I knew this could come back and bite them in their ass, and guess what? It could come back and bite them in their ass if the Patriots go on a little run here, and the Raiders drop a game. Patriots end up making the playoffs. Who knows? Who knows? I would not put it past Bill Belichick to end up doing that. So if somehow, some miracle way, the Raiders end up playing the Patriots in the playoffs, it could happen, by the way. I went through all the scenarios. It could happen. It would be fantastic if the Raiders could beat them in the playoffs. Then I could be a very happy man. But first things first, guys, is this game in Las Vegas where the Raiders don't play, for some reason, don't play as good. But it's in Las Vegas. It's against the Colts. And if Raiders defeat the Colts in this game, no matter what happens in these other games, no matter what happens, the Raiders are in the wild card. They are in there. They're not outside looking in. They will grab that 7th seed if they win that game, at least for this week. Still got 3 weeks after that. But that's why it's such an important game. And when you look at it, like I said, yes. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. It's going to be a tough task. Can the Raiders do it? Absolutely, they can do it. Absolutely. Like I said, if they can stop the run, not let Phillip Rivers just completely control the clock on the other side and have Derek Carr on the sidelines, if the Raiders can get any kind of run game going, if Derek Carr can be accurate with his throws, I mean very accurate, get Darren Waller involved, and get Hunter Renfrow involved, just control the tempo, control the clock. The Raiders can win this. They can win it in a short fashion, a game that's 17-10. Or if you want to go in a shootout, I think that would benefit the Raiders, to be honest with you. I think the Raiders are better in shootouts. They showed that against the Chiefs. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. You have the 15th ranked offense, and by the way, that's the Raiders ranked. They would be a lot better than that if they didn't get hammered against Atlanta. Against the 5th ranked defense, Indianapolis Colts. Yes, the Colts are good against the pass. They're ranked 7th in the NFL. But I just told you who the Colts have played this season. You know what I mean? They haven't been playing these juggernauts. Yes, they played against Green Bay. You know what I mean? But other than that, I mean, the Bengals, the New York Jets, Jacksonville, Minnesota, come on now. And these are teams that not very good. So this is why I say the Raiders stand a chance in this game, and I think they can win this game. It's going to be hard. I'm not giving any predictions here, that's for sure. But I'm telling you one thing right now, the Raiders do stand a chance in this football game. They do. They stand a chance in this football game. By the way, the Indianapolis Colts, they have 15 sacks on the season, I believe it is. Is it 28 sacks on a season? And the Raiders, they have 15 sacks. So that's a big difference. And by the way, that 15 sacks marks, oh boy, that's bad. That's tied for 29th in the NFL. The Raiders' scoring defense is 28th. Their defense isn't very good. We all know this. Their passing defense is 24th. But listen, it's their defense. And their defense does show up in a few key moments in every football game. The Raiders are going to need their defense to show up in some key moments. If the Raiders can keep this game close into the 4th quarter, that's when this Raiders defense, they need to come up with a big interception. And I think Phillip Rivers is that guy to throw that big interception. Now, I know Derek Carr has thrown a couple here and there. Last week he threw one, but really, was it his fault? It bounced off Henry Ruggs' hands. But Phillip Rivers just throws some bad passes sometimes. And that's where the Raiders need to capitalize. If they get a turnover, they cannot go 3 and out once they get that turnover. They have to make sure that turnover means something and get points off that turnover. That's something the Raiders need to work on. You get momentum, you need to ride that momentum. That's what they need. That's been the problem. This is why I think the team has not been consistent. It's because they get the momentum sometimes, and they just drop it. They get a big interception, but then the offense goes on the field, then they go 3rd and out and they punt it. Like nothing. So it means nothing, basically. They need to grab that momentum. They need to grab that momentum early. They need to make sure they are not down by 14 points in this game. The Raiders are not built like that. They are not built to come back, 3 scores. Can they come back 2 scores? Yes, absolutely. But they can't let the game out of the hand. They play a lot better when they dictate the game, when they score first. That's what the Raiders need to do. Get off to the hot start, control the game, keep it close for the first 2 quarters, and then make your halftime adjustments and make them good this week, John Gruden, and go out there and score some touchdowns. Control the clock. Derek Carr, RCE, needs to be 1,000 in this game. Accuracy. I mean, throwing the ball, looking for wide open guys, looking at the matchups you're facing. Don't get fooled by the linebackers. And the Raiders can do this, guys. We will talk after the game. Here we go, guys. It's playoff football. Make no mistake about it. Raiders versus the Colts. Can the Raiders make the playoffs? We'll find out. I will talk to you next week. My name is Steven Michaels. This is the Raiders Daily.